and YouTube blog covering the German startup scene with news, interviews, and live events.
Hello and welcome everybody. This is Joe from Startuprad.io, your startup podcast and YouTube blog from Germany, bringing you another interview in Startuprad.io. But this time we don't have a guest who has a big relation to Germany. But we do have Yvette here, a VC based, as I just learned, on the outskirts of New York City. Hey, how you doing?
Hi, how are you? Good to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Before we get into what you did, and there's a lot of interesting stuff you did and what we can talk about, I would like to put the interview in perspective, because a lot of German, Austrian, Swiss-based startups, tech startups, they need to look abroad when they want to raise serious money, Series A, Series B stage around that. So that's why we thought today we do an interview with a US-based investor and get your perspective from the outside in. What is interesting in this industry? What is not interesting? And the view how you can approach investors like you.
Happy to talk about it.
Yes, but first, let me introduce you a little bit, because you are very interesting. You received numerous industry awards. I have to look it up because there are a lot. 2020 Lifetime Achievement Emmy for Engineering and Technology, National Cable and Television Association Vanguard Award for Leadership in Science and Technology, named Industry Pioneer, an Emmy for your work in video on demand at Sea Change, named an Industry Wonder Woman, named one of the 11 most influential women in television industry, and consistently being ranked as one of the top 100 industry executives. And when I read this, I had two observations, because first, what completely astonished me is you have 2 degrees in mathematics, no production, no filming, no camera. How did you end up in the more or less video on demand TV industry? And of course, you're a mathematician. Can you tell us a good math joke?
By default, when you're a mathematician, you have to have no sense of humor. They don't allow us to be able to tell jokes. It's one of the requirements before we graduate. We're very dry. So, but what I will say is that I'm very much a deep technologist. I was working on AI long before it was cool. Recently, a very, very long time back when we had to do our own algorithms and we didn't have all the amazing AI tool sets that exist today to make it so easy, low code, no code. But I went into the television industry. I was working as a serious mathematician doing pattern recognition algorithms for the Department of Defense, and I heard that we were trying to go to get digital signals and lay fiber, and I thought, well, that's all mathematics to figure out how to get digital signals through fiber. And so that's what led me to the television industry. And I am very proud of having a Lifetime Achievement Emmy, which is usually people think of for actors and actresses, but mine is truly for television engineering and technology development. So streaming, DVD, App Store, many things that everybody uses today that I'm quite proud of having a piece of the development of.
Just out of curiosity, you have an Emmy. How high would you rate your acting skills?
I don't have any of those. Yes, I guarantee that my acting skills had nothing to do with my Emmy. Yes, but I'm very proud of the Academy, because the Academy is of Television Arts and Sciences, and we typically watch the arts part on the award shows, but the sciences is very important for signal, for compression, for delivery, for creating streaming, for cameras. All of that plays a role in the on the sciences side, and it's the same Emmy. So quite proud of that.
Yes, when I read all of that, I was expecting to see a lot of TV outlets in your CV like NBC, ABC. Okay, I have to admit I found Time Warner and PBS, but I was quite surprised that you started your career as a senior radar engineer for radar systems at Lockheed Martin. You also have been a senior VP, senior vice president at Cisco, and you have been a president at Nasdaq listed SeaChange, a supplier of video delivery systems. Would you say you're a tech geek?
Yes, no doubt. I'm definitely a geek. Yeah, that's for sure. But I start. I think that when you rise up to a president level from pretty serious technology, and it ties in with investments and being a VC as well. It's always good to really understand the technology, and it's really good to be able to dive in deep with the technical teams. And of course, if you're too technical and you don't understand the business and the finances and those trade-offs, that's not good either. So I just learned the latter later in life, how to run a business, product management, all of the other aspects of running a company.
I see. So I assume you run your complete home on a Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, or alternatives, right? You have to have you have to have your fault tolerance built in.
I see. So now that we have kind of set the frame, who you are, what you did, pretty impressed. Actually, you're the first Emmy Award winner ever on my show. I do have a lot of other winners of prestigious award, but Emmy, that's the first one. I'm still short of an Oscar winner, so maybe we can talk about this later.
Yes, there's always tomorrow. You have and maybe a Grammy. You should just really diversify.
Yes. Oh yeah, yes, exactly. You're here because you're an US-based investor and you already have an investment here in Germany. It's called DeepDrone. It's in Kassel, in the state of Hessen, in the north. A little bit off the beaten path, but I do believe they are making some pretty cool stuff there. Can you talk just a tiny bit about what they are doing?
So DeepDrone is an anti-drone company. Very, very interesting. When we talk about drones, we think about this kind of drone or that kind of drone. We don't tend to think about the drone threat. And so what DeepDrone is, they monitor. So take an airport, for example. You remember that there have been several incidences where drones have interrupted air traffic. An airport can see drone activity in the area. They can actually triangulate the drone source. In defense cases, you could actually take action on the drone, right? So the need for drone realization, understanding, using artificial intelligence to do things like this triangulation. Very, very interesting company as an anti-drone company. So they are based in Kassel and very, very, very interesting technology.
So we can already tell you are interested in deep tech and green tech. Do you see a future for the German and overall European startup scene in this direction?
Well, I do. I think that especially in Germany, you have government subsidies and help for startups in the green side. There's a big energy push that's very, very strong in Europe. And so I think that's a real opportunity. I think that there's a lot of focus on that, both from the government and the startup side. So clean energy, I think manufacturing optimization, there's certain things that I really think are strong where you're at, Joe. And I think that in general in the world it will continue to be more and more important. And maybe a mix too. Let's be honest, right? Maybe it's also optimizing or automating or making more efficient and green energy. I think that mix is also valuable.
I see. We're here to talk about the startups, hear from your outside perspective as well as the outside in perspective, meaning the outside perspective, what you see of the German-speaking startup scene, and also how startups from here can approach you. What are some interesting trends you see, you kind of have an eye on if we talk about Germany or the broader area here in terms of startups? We already talked about DeepDrone, drone defense. Anything else? Maybe video compression, video on demand startups?
Well, I think that video on demand, when I was on the team creating that, think about it. We had nothing. It wasn't. Now streaming, everybody opens their phone and their laptop and starts streaming. Every time they do, I'm very proud. But at the time, you have to invent things before you know you need them. I remember very distinctly people telling me, Yvette, you're silly. People don't want to watch video when they want to watch it. People are fine waiting till 8 p.m. on Tuesday night to watch that show. And you have to believe, and you have to push for a change. So, and I'll talk about it in a minute, Joe, because it does matter. Creating a better compression to get just a tiny bit better signal is very less disruptive than changing an industry and changing the way that we watch content, right? So that disruption becomes more important. Today, people are looking for something big disruptive as opposed to moving an inch to a better product that was disrupted yesterday. So the example you brought up is a good example, but we could come up with thousands, right? Which is, are you really disrupting a market? And you asked me about Germany. So I think that, things I think about with Germany, love Germany, by the way. Fun fact, I was raised in Germany. And clean energy, I think, that you already brought up, I think very strong in manufacturing. Matter of fact, Germany, the country, very strong in manufacturing and on the industrial side. I think of Germany strong in fintech. There have been a lot of fintech focus and successes. And I think health also. I mean, as a United States based just person, I would say BioNTech, right? Everybody knows what happened there some years ago. So it's on the radar of people in general. But I wouldn't say that your Silicon Alley is yet as known as the Silicon Valley, right? So. So that at a high level in terms of, what the other thing I think of, consumer goods. You do a lot on the consumer delivery and optimization and even healthcare delivery. You've had some successes there too.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Interesting perspective. You said,
but Joe, you have to tell me. You can't ask me the perspective without commenting. Do you disagree? If you disagree with me, I'd love to know.
No, I actually would completely agree. BioNTech actually is not too far away here in the city of Mainz, and they're using the tax proceeds to really build a biotech hub. And we already had two of the companies there already established in the interview. One of them is already listed on NASDAQ, and the other one is very early stage. A very smart lady. She's a professor at the University of Mainz, and she is working on a technology to make it easier to transplant organs, to transplant stem cells. In order to therapy leukemia, for example, but she's still waiting for her first patient at the stage of the interview. But there's a lot of activity going on, and I do believe that is something that doesn't always grab the headline attention, but it's something we do, except for appearing on Startup Radio. How would a startup get your attention?
Well, you just answered. It's you, Joe. But I think it's a really good question because I think creating that interconnection is magical, and it's the right question to ask because startups want to know who do I go pitch, right? I have my pitch deck. How can I get in front of more people? And to your question of, looking at the US VC market, how can I especially get into US VCs, right? And And VCs are bombarded with everybody, right? You're always getting an email with somebody's pitch deck or a one pager, right? And it's just impossible to keep up with all the people that email me and say, read this, read this, read this. So I think that the magic, I'm going to give you the answer in a different form, which is instead of just trying to crowdsource or trying to just say, I'm throwing it out there and seeing what will stick, it's creating meaningful relationships. It's the same as your customer base. How do I find customers? I have a great product. Why won't everybody buy it? Because you have to create meaningful relationships. And so you should look at your VC community the way that you look at your sales community. It's a network. It's something that you invest in long term. It's something you invest in before you need funding. Funding is hard. It's become more and more difficult in the US as well as Germany, worldwide. It's been a very difficult last year. And so being at all of the being at the events, it's not something about where can I send my deck to or how can I get the right introduction when I need it. It's about creating long-term relationships with VCs at VC events, being in the communities. I think that take Germany, for example, and I'll take a couple of companies that I'm close with, like Siemens, right? And Siemens is very caring about the startup community, and they reach out to the startup community. But go one step further, have relationships with your companies. By the way, many companies have VC arms, right? They do here, right? And they do there. So it's not just investing in them. It's networking beyond them with several companies and then extending that into the U.S. market, into the VCs in the U.S. Most people just look at it at a very tactical way. You have to look at this strategic and you have to grow that network. It takes time, effort, and it's worth it.
Kind of the bottom line that I see, it's easier to get a first meeting in person at an event with you or one of your colleagues, than just, sending out like a gazillion of emails, because personal experience, there is not a lot of people who would reply to those emails.
I think that I agree. Everything you said is exactly my point, but why do so many send the emails and go that route? I get so many a day, and Joe, you have to know what I'm talking about. I'm sure you see the same, right? It is the easiest way. I do something once, I put it into mail bombardment. But many of these VC events, and again, go start with the German one, right? Because the German ones can expand. People know people. You have one person there, you'll get invited to one in the US. And I think that if you start that cycle and you understand how to network, many of these include speed dating, is what we call it in the US, right? Where you get 15 minutes with the startup and you actually take the time to say, I'm doing 15 minutes, 15 minutes, 15 minutes, 15 minutes. Practice a really tight pitch that's 15 minutes and see if you get that follow-up. And those kind of events are magical and much, much better. And even if you don't get invited to one of the 15-minute sessions, be there at the dinners, be there for the discussions. Again, it's a long-term investment, and everybody knows everybody. It's a small community, so that networking is very worthwhile.
First, a little geeky detail here. I know speed dating works not only for online dating. Actually, I do have a friend who's a very geeky computer scientist. We gave him a birthday present to go for speed dating. Somebody had to watch him. That was me, and I actually met my wife there.
Oh my goodness. Congratulations on that too. Well, this would be VC startup speed dating, and let's assume it's the same.
Exactly. But for me personally, it would be also interesting to find the right events, because as we talked about the emails, like there are a million emails, there are a million events. How would I find the right ones, the interesting ones?
Right, and so I have my favorite. You have your favorite, which we won't share. But I think that you have to get into the right area first, right? It's the same as networking. It's the same as sales. You get as close as you can, and you leverage that network to get to the next step. So I would say, let's say, for example, you're very tight with a good venture group in Germany. You start with that venture group and go to those events, and you really look at the attendee list and you see who's there that's in the group that you'd like to be invited to. And then you go talk to those people and see if you can get invited to that group the next time. Let's say you're not in that venture circle in Germany, but let's say you have a good customer circle. Ask to be introduced to your customers' venture arms and go to their events, right? Because they have the right people. Again, it's a small community, and it's truly worthwhile to network in that community. The job of a CEO is hard, right? Because you're trying to sell. You're focused on your technology. You need to find the right product market fit. You're focused on marketing, and you need to focus on your investments. You need to be looking at your prior rounds always, as opposed to, don't look at it just 6 months in advance. You should be close with that industry. So it's something to add to your day-to-day job for sure.
And when you attend those events, is it more important to have, I already know the answer, but I want to have it again from you. Is it more important to have 70 pages of pitch deck with you, a one pager, or a business card, or both?
I think that now you just do an electronic LinkedIn connect, so no business card. And I think that you want to capture somebody's interest. So the biggest thing is what you can say with your words. You don't need a deck. One pager to leave somebody with is fine, but it's all about the story. Have your story well and crisp. Joe, if I can just pivot for a second about that story, right? Because the key is, what makes a VC interested? Forget US or if you're in India or if you're in Germany. Why do I like you, right? And for us, our criteria, and I think for most VCs, the very first thing is the people. Right? I'm a serial entrepreneur. I have this many unicorns in my past, right? Or that's the first time, and I just finished sending out 50,000 emails and they didn't work. So that's my first pitch to you, and I'm not succinct, right? All of those things matter. So you really need to get your story about the people right as to why I should trust you and your team. I have the best team. I have a proven team. My team has lots of experience, and I believe in you. That's the first criteria. If you show up with a bad pitch or you show up with 75 pages to your question, Joe, it's an uphill battle, right? You're probably not going to get very far. And you're saying, I finally was invited to the party and I failed, right? So do your homework for the party. Call Joe. Joe will help you. He knows what to do at the party. But I think the second part is that you have to be in a market transition, right? The market transition is very important to us. So I say that because you said earlier, better compression for video versus inventing streaming. Inventing streaming changed the world. Better compression, I don't know if people care. I don't know what people would pay. Are you going to pay more for your streaming every month because it's a better compression? Maybe not, right? It's difficult. Somebody every day comes up to me to say, I'm going to make streaming better because I have a better user interface, because I have a better compression, because I have a better this. I have technology to share videos, to do video parties. There are so many things to make it one step better, but is it disruptive enough like the first invention was, right? And so that disruption is really, really important. You have to have something different. You have to differentiate yourself from everybody else. And then we go way deep. We will go to the customer base. We'll talk to our friendly customers because we have a huge connection. I work with John Chambers, who's a legend in Silicon Valley. And we use our own connections to say, is this a right market fit, product market fit? Would you buy this? Even though you don't even know the startup yet. So all of those things matter, and you have to have all of the things that you're trying to accomplish in your pitch deck in your mind, and say, I have to have an elevator pitch. I'm on the elevator between floor 1 and say floor 5, not floor 25, 5 floors. Do I have a pitch short enough to answer those questions? I'm super the best team. I have a disruptive technology for a market transition that's going to rock your world. 5 stories. So you got to practice that. Then you've got to do the 15-minute pitch. for that type of speed dating environment, right? Where you're doing VC after VC after VC, and then have your longer deck. But if you always have the 80 pages, you won't, you'll be lucky to get far. It's an uphill battle. But does that make sense, Joe? I mean, that criteria has become stricter and tougher.
It totally makes sense. And actually, that is something that has gotten easier over the years because many people, it's very easy to come up with an 80 slide presentation. It's much harder to come up with an 8-slide presentation. But when I was talking about this, it's gotten easier. There are a lot of tools out there to help you first do a very impressive presentation. I know that matters a little bit. And secondly, also tools like ChatGPT who help you just to summarize 80 slides into 8 slides. They can help you with that. Because if you're an entrepreneur by yourself, it's very, very, very hard to really cut down all the things you thought about, all the details you want to include that highlights what makes you different. But actually, a really good trick that somebody told me, one of my former bosses, was try to explain it to your grandma.
Yeah. As a mathematician, Joe.
Yeah, she doesn't get the details here and there and this, and she doesn't even know Disney Plus. But if you can explain it to your grandma, that she'll understand, you're set.
That is good advice, Joe. That is very good advice. When I started, I started on the super techie, geeky side, and when people told me I need to bring it to one page, I would just change the font size. I've learned much since then, So the grandma is a good idea, and I think, Joe, the other thing that's really changed is the financial criteria has gotten much more stringent. So it used to be that I would believe in you, Joe, and you're pitching to me, and I've been through 2 startups with you in the past, and I think now it's a show me instead of believe me stage. It's gotten worse over the last 24 months. You have to show me your growth. You have to show me your growth in much more stringent time periods. You have to show me a much more aggressive growth. People would like to see I think that VCs in general are right? The growth is different for different size of revenue, but again that criteria gets stricter and stricter, and so I think really focusing on the financials in addition to the grandmother stories is very important, because a lot of pitches to me focus on how cool my technology is. And then I talk about the money and they say, well, Yvette, you're going to help me with that. And I just think, wow, if you don't have that ready and you don't understand that, that's a big miss, especially on early seed.
Mm-hmm. And also what I've experienced in my life is a lot of the people who have like the technical details and all the stuff, the product hammered out, they completely believe you just need 1, 2, 3 million. You throw them into marketing. The marketing guys will do something with it, and then you're good. That doesn't work anymore, right?
That is so right. You are so right. And which is why I say, think about all the answers before you do your presentation and make sure that you can give all those answers in the various sizes, extra small, like an elevator pitch, to small, like 15 minutes, to medium and large and extra large. And it's amazing how most of them will be smaller, medium pitches. And you have to capture a VC's interest in that short period of time, because your only goal is the follow-up. Your goal is not to let them understand the detail of slide number 157. It's really just to get the follow-up meeting.
Actually, I do believe if you can make a VC sit into slide 157, he or she is already very interested.
This is true. I don't know if I've ever seen that though, Joe. Have you? 157, that's a lot.
You gave me a very, very new way to think about the pitches. So you have XS, it's like the one pager. You have the S pitch, the M pitch, and maybe somewhere there's the XL pitch, but basically you just use it as, in German we would say Sammelsurium, as a collection of slides that you can throw together to make shorter pitches.
Yes, that's right. And not just the sizes, but but know what your goal is of the meeting, because many people think I'm looking for that technical depth. I need to get that into your head about how amazing my solution is. And that should not be your goal, right? So when we look at things, I gave you that criteria, the people, the market transition, the total disruption as to why you're going to be successful, and how am I going to make money, and how long is it going to take, right? So you have to look at it from my perspective and give that and think of that as you create those sized decks.
Also, for me, many people, when they start out in the startup scene, like the very first month of fundraising, they believe they have, like, as we talked about, a very long, extensive pitch deck. They have one scheduled appointment with the VC, and at the end of the pitch, the VC will get out his checkbook and write a check. That's not working anymore. How would you say you should be prepared? Because for me personally, I would approach it, get to know them in person, like attend the right events. Then you go and do like an online presentation, like the S or the M pitch deck, as we talked about. And then maybe you should also get to know the people in person, visit them again, Silicon Valley, New York, Chicago, wherever they are. I do believe that would make a lot of difference if you visit the VCs again, and then at one point they'll get out the checkbook, but it will be a long process.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I don't. I mean, we're a very close community, and in the VC world, so we all talk to each other quite often. But that is that's not the way we do it at all, right? So we have 100 to 1 rejections of ones that we even show interest in. So you have to come in looking at a very high failure rate probability. And I think that what you do is in the first meeting, you want a second meeting. In the second meeting, you'd like to have a meeting with a larger team, right? And in the third meeting, you'd like to have a second meeting with the larger team. In the next meeting, you'd like to have somebody that falls in love with this technology, product, market disruption, whatever it is that's super exciting about your particular pitch. It's going to take many meetings. And it almost always involves a larger team. And like I said, from our standpoint, we then want to talk to customers, and then we talk to our own customers that we know are our friends and family, and we'll say, let me introduce you to somebody that we're thinking of investing in, and tell me what's your honest thought about their sales pitch, not the investment pitch. So there's a lot of steps there, Joe. It is not an easy journey. And again, the financial criteria has gotten much stricter. You can't just do yesterday's thing better. I mean, I'm not saying you can't. Of course, any startup can do anything, but we really look for true disruptions in a market transition. It's been a difficult market. And then if you want to go outside of Germany and say, I would like to have that US, you have to do all the same things in the US VC environment.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. Plus you have to show why they should invest, because as you were saying, there's certain economics to VC fund. That means you can't just make 2-3 times profit on your investment. Then the economics don't work, because a lot of failures are always included in a VC fund. That means the successful startups, they have to make up for all the other failures. So you're looking really for the big moonshot there.
Yes, you are. Always. Well said, Joe. That's exactly the way it works. You are spot on. The only other thing I'd add to this whole discussion of Germany that you just brought up is that, and not specific to Germany, but specific to the US, one of the big disruptions right now in the VC market is, of course, the economy. And a second one that's worth mentioning is, of course, all of the regulatory changes, geopolitics, and things that are happening. And so maybe an important thing to add to the whole discussion we just had in terms of pitching is also those two things, right? Because the VC community sees things as a slower payout right now and as a high risk with regard to regulatory changes. And in another country, you're dependent on the regulatory changes in that country and what's happening. And so much with the geopolitics, with artificial intelligence, with the ongoing privacy considerations and trust, and it's just seemingly never ending as to how regulatory changes are being implemented. So I would add that to a level of complexity for a cross-country investment, because you're making an investment not just in the technology, but in all of that as well.
Never ever forget the taxes.
Yes, yes, and if you have something that's you want me to invest in something that's strong in country, that's in country that's a different country from where you're investing in, then is that something we're all familiar with? Is that regulatory risk going to potentially impact your success? And so much on privacy, even if you're doing grocery delivery, right? What do you do with the data? How do you address the data? Where is it stored? Can you store it in the cloud? How are you addressing all of the privacy factors when you go cross a country line? Are we technically savvy enough to address that? All of those are more difficult when you're investing in another country to understand what those regulations are and how you cross those bridges. So there's definitely another level of complexity. And I would think we talked about DeepDrone based in Kassel. Their headquarters was in San Francisco, and our headquarters is in San Francisco. So, or in Palo Alto, I should say, Silicon Valley. And so think about, are you going to have a presence in the U.S. if you're seeking U.S. Investments? Are you planning to expand? Do you have U.S. customers? You have 2 U.S. customers. One thing that we do, Joe, is we actually help with customer expansion. So we have a very, very, very large customer base that we're close with, and where we know their executive teams, and we set up JC2 days. And in JC2 days, we might invite between 5 and 10 startups to do this speed presentation to a customer, with the goal to see which one the customer would like to follow up with. And so we actually help with sales, introductions, so much. But if you're only in country, then that so much of that would not be applicable, right? So how good of a fit are you with the culture of the VC and how they run? Because we take such an active role and we help with introductions. If you're only in country in Germany, then that would be very limiting.
I see. To get towards the end, because we're talking for over 35 minutes for now, that will be on the little bit longer side, but I do believe there's a lot of entertaining and also interesting content in here. There are benchmarks out there in terms of Series A sizes, valuations, and so on and so forth. If you Google a lot, benchmarks, how much investment do Series A stage startups get? At what valuation? The same for Series B valuation, investment size. Would you expect the founders to know that and not be completely off the charts?
I think that founders would behoove themselves to look up some of the art. There are some great articles out there on what your multiples expectations are, what the ranges are for it, what is the right growth expectation on various aspects of growth, right? For various sizes of revenue. I think that all of that is something that I would recommend you familiarize yourself with, because that's what you'll be compared to, for sure. So if they don't know, I mean, Joe, you tell me if they know or not, but they should.
Yeah, they should. And as you said, it's just your homework you need to do. Getting finally to you guys, what kind of startups are you looking for, and how could startups pitch? We already noticed you get way too many emails. But I've seen you have security and trust, engagement, NG infrastructure, and sustainability as broad investment topics on your website. Could you elaborate a little bit what you guys are doing and how startups can make the first contact there?
Joe, so I would say that we're highly biased towards AI, have been for many, many years. Since the beginning, we've been very biased towards AI in transformations as an underlying technology. The areas that you just mentioned, I would say security. There's so much happening in security, and with the change of quantum computing and new technologies that really affect cyber risk quantification and things that address some of the SEC regulations that are happening here. Lots of interesting things on the cyber side. And that has to continue to change because with AI, we now have AI-driven cyber attacks. So that is going to continue to be top of mind for a very long time. So that's one area. The next I would say is AI for customer experience. I think the whole customer experience needs a complete transformation. I think AI is going to drive calls to a call center. Bots are going to become better. They're going to be more speakable as opposed to the IVRs that exist today. Lots of transformation happening in that, which is of big interest. And then I think that you can't get rid of our roots of infrastructure, probably continue to stay in there, and things like network as a service. I'll stop there, Joe, but there's a couple of ideas.
Great. And everybody who'd like to learn more, you can go down here in the show notes. There will be, of course, a link to your LinkedIn profile and to JC2 Investments. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure having you here.
Likewise. Thanks for having me, Joe.
Totally my pleasure. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That's all, folks. Find more news, streams, events, and interviews at www.startuprad.io. Remember, sharing is caring.